The following statement was prepared by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Maritime Region for Telile Community Television regarding the cancellation of shark derbies in Nova Scotia. In previous years, Fisheries and Oceans Canada has authorized shark tournaments through the issuance of scientific licenses under Section 52 of the Fishery General Regulations as a way to support the department's science requirements. However, the department's research program no longer requires new sampling through this license, and we communicated this to shark tournament organizers and other stakeholders last year. DFO provided shark tournament organizers 3 alternative options for holding authorized shark derbies. 1. Tournaments authorized through the issuance of a recreational license that permits catch and release, which would allow tagging but not landing. 2. Tournaments authorized through the issuance of a recreational license that permits retention, which requires human consumption of the catch in order to avoid waste. And 3. Tournaments authorized through the issuance of a scientific license with the support of another organization, or DFO in the future as needed, that requests scientific study of a shark that would require the shark to be landed in circumstances outside commercial fishery bycatch. The decision to proceed or not with any of these options, and the request for any applicable required license, rests with shark tournament organizers. So now you've heard the reasoning from the DFO as to why the 3 remaining shark fishing derbies in Nova Scotia were cancelled this year. And you've also heard the criteria under which any of these derbies could go forward in future years. So what do local organizers and residents think of the cancellation in Petit de Grat? To get some perspective on this, I spoke to Aleasha David. She's been working for many years at the Marine Research Centre at Université Sainte-Anne's campus in Petit de Grat. And she and her colleague, Michelle Theriault, the director of the Marine Research Centre, have been acting in an observational and science monitoring perspective at the Petit de Grat Derby since it launched in 2011. And as well, they've taken on leadership roles that are closer to the action in recent years. With the cancellation of the Derby, I felt that it was a good idea to speak to Aleasha David to get her perspective on the whole issue. So I caught up with her via phone late last week for Telile Community Television's Roundtable program. Here's our conversation right now. So, Aleasha, thank you for joining us today. One of the big reasons that we did want to speak to you about the situation involving the Petit de Gras Shark Derby was because we were curious about the involvement that you and your colleague from the Marine Research Centre, Michelle Theriault, have had over the years. Can you tell us a little bit about what got the two of you involved and what roles you served during that time?
Yeah, so I actually wasn't as involved the first year that they had it. It was a group of fishermen that kind of sat around at a party or somewhere and decided that it would be fun to have an event like this in the area. So they kind of pushed it forward the first year, and our involvement really took place when DFO started getting involved and having someone doing sampling at the wharf with DFO. And from there, it kind of grew to help them with their committee and organization and how we could move forward with it. And now both Michelle and I are on the committee, so every year help organize the event, from start to finish.
Okay, so what kinds of things were you looking for, you and Michelle, in terms of making sure it was carried out properly and working both with the local fishermen and with DFO? What kinds of things were you folks in charge of?
So at the beginning, we actually worked closely with DFO and some of the science. So when they were coming to the derbies, the idea was that they were collecting certain information on the sharks that were being landed. So sizes, maturity work, dissections, stomach contents. So making sure that they had shark on the wharf and that if they needed assistance in getting any of that information, that we helped do that. From there, we became involved a little bit on the organization side of it. So sponsorship, preparing everything beforehand, rules, regulations, making sure that everything was following protocol for DFO. And then, of course, taking the day of making sure everything worked out smoothly. So registration, the licensing was set up. The day of, we helped at the wharf, both with the dissections, but also with measuring weights as the sharks landed, the length measurements for the winners, So really just carrying it out till the end of it.
The two of you worked carefully with DFO and with the local fishermen on the various things you've just mentioned. So, with all that in mind, were you surprised or caught off guard at all when DFO announced that it was going to shut down the last three shark derbies in Nova Scotia, including Petit de Grat? What was your reaction?
So when we first, it wasn't a one-time meeting. We did discuss it several years ago. The idea that this might be coming, it might have to happen. The way the licensing always worked is it went through DFO Science. So Science would apply for a main license for the event with the idea that they were collecting information on the shark when they had it. And they did warn us that as the years went on, because of the size of the sharks that were being landed being very restricted, there's only so much information that they needed to collect or could collect on those animals. So there's all kinds of information they don't have on shark. But shark, those sizes coming in from those derbies, they were at the point where they felt like they had enough information to learn from it, and that they probably wouldn't be applying in the same way or getting a license in the same way so that they could get that information, because it wasn't going to help them moving forward with science. So they did warn us a few years ago that this might happen. And then come last year before the derby, actually, they told us that that would be the last year that they would apply for the scientific license, and that we might have to consider other ways if we want to continue having the derby, and how we could do that.
So let's talk just a little bit about that. DFO released a statement not too long after the cancellation went through and mentioned that there would be three criteria that would be required for a derby to be able to go through. One of them being that it would be a catch and release event. The other being that if indeed the derby was allowed to proceed, then the meat that was brought in from the sharks would have to be consumed, and that there would have to be a scientific justification to be able to see the derby going through for research purposes. So did you get the sense that basically the way the derby was going in Petit de Grat, based on the changing criteria from DFO, that it wasn't going to match any of those three main conditions that were being put on it?
So it makes it difficult. So for us, we really took this year to step back and see if anybody else was able to do it through those criteria. There's concerns with having to do a catch and release on how we would go about doing it. They've done it in other fisheries. They do it with tuna. So we are still inquiring about how that's happening in other places and whether or not there is a way that we could apply it here. In terms of biological sampling, we don't see it as a fit here. There were other groups in the province that were exploring that option to see if it was a possibility. As you said, nobody's moving forward with it this year as far as I know. But they are considering it. And in terms of eating the shark, blue shark is really not a shark that's used for consumption much. So as of right now, we don't see that as an option. But all three are being considered, and we're not saying we're out of it for good. We just took a step back to see if there was a way that might work in the future. As of right now, we didn't know how that would work or how we could do that.
In the meantime, just taking a snapshot, Aleasha, of the local community and the reaction. Obviously, this was something that coincided with the Festival Acadien de Petit de Grat for many years. What do you feel the reaction's been to the community, and especially from the fishermen that you've been hearing since the news got out?
Oh, some of the fishermen are disappointed it can't move forward. But we are trying to make them understand and work with them to see if there's a way around it. DFO has a point, and the reason they're not applying for the permit makes sense. So we're understanding of that, and it may be that we can't have it again. But we're exploring the option of having it some other way with the fishermen that are interested. We have several fishermen on our board, and we're just trying to see if there's any way we can get around it to see if they can still have the event.
One last question to you, Aleasha. How do you feel personally about all of this? I mean, obviously, this was something that you put your time in over the years to make sure it was running smoothly. You approached it from a marine biology perspective. How do you feel about the way things have shaken out this year, and what things might look like for the future, if anything?
I think I'm coming from a very scientific view, so for that reason, I understand where DFO is coming from. So for us, a lot of the interest was on the wharf and that scientific work was happening, and we are losing that anyway. So from that side, I understand. Obviously, I think there's a whole educational component to it, and I think a lot of the other derbies are feeling that hit, maybe even more than we are, because they had thousands of people come to the wharf in some areas. It was an opportunity to teach kids, for them to see stuff and learn about the sharks, and even that in itself, if we can take some of that back somehow, would be nice to see from our side.
I know that this is all coming together quickly, and I appreciate you giving some time to me to help discuss this. So, Aleasha David, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem.